On TV, on radio, and on your smartphone. This is Talk TV.
Good evening, my friends, and welcome to the best of Piers Morgan Uncensored for the very final time. You lucky people with me, Jeremy Kyle. Now, Piers, of course, is back Monday, just in time to sink his teeth into the new Prime Minister and his or her cabinet. And it was with our dearly departing leader that we start tonight's show. So what is Boris Johnson's legacy? Talk TV's political editor, Kate McCann, is here, along with former Labour MP, Luciana Berger. Kate, I start with you. What is Boris Johnson's legacy from a political analyst like yourself? I sort of think politics will never be as fun again. But on a serious note, is there a legacy or was it tarnished beyond repair?
Well, I think the big worry for Boris Johnson, and you can see it a little bit in his last couple of weeks in office, is that he's not quite sure what his legacy is going to be. I mean, COVID-19 made it really difficult for him to achieve some of those things he talked about on the steps of Downing Street. And look, you heard from people there, really mixed bag, but people have strong opinions about him and about what he achieved. He set out to do something that was quite unique. He managed to harness votes from a group of people in the country that very rarely come the Conservatives' way. And the thing that always sticks in my mind about Boris Johnson is the night after he won that election, he came back and he said, look, I know that I've essentially borrowed your votes, and I know that I need to deliver for you or you will never vote for my party again. He understood the implications of it and the pressure on him. And I think for him, he will be frustrated and probably a little bit sad that he's not been able to deliver fully on the things that he pledged. And that would have been cost of living. It would have been so-called levelling up. Now, we've seen some of that in new railways. We've seen some of that in new money. But even there have been accusations that perhaps it's not gone as far as it should have. Perhaps it's been a little bit hollow, and it may well not change the lives of people in the way that he wants it to. So, Jeremy, what will it be? Boris Johnson wants it to be the green agenda now, and Ukraine. I think potentially Ukraine may stick in a lot of people's minds.
Luciana, a huge critic of Boris Johnson. We'll talk more about how you left your party, the man that Johnson defeated in 2019. Anybody could have defeated Jeremy Corbyn, though, couldn't they, to be fair?
I mean, it was all but foregone conclusion that, certainly at that election, that Boris Johnson and the Conservatives were going to win. And Boris did so off the back of saying he was going to get Brexit
But I mean, that's an interesting one. I've said this to Kate before privately. I mean, I'm not a marketing guru or a political analyst, but I remember the 2019 election really clearly. The Liberal Democrats said, we're not going to do what the British people, the majority of the British people want. The Labour Party said, we haven't got a clue what we're going to do. And all he had to say was, get Brexit done. That was done. COVID very, very quickly. I always use this example, and I'm going to throw this at you straight away. I had somebody on the radio the other day, and I can't swear, so I won't, but he basically said, Boris Johnson is a lying whatever, but he is my lying whatever. Now, this man, despite his flaws, despite the lack of attention to detail and his rather shady relationship with the truth that we all know, still to this day resonates with the British people. And we talked off air. None of us would be surprised if he didn't make a comeback.
Well, I think it resonates with some British people, but certainly his popularity has decreased significantly since when he first came into office, and the gap in the polls now is the greatest that it's ever been. So yes, that was certainly the case when he came in 2019. That is not the case now, and we have to only look at his record and what he has either done.
What do you remember him for?
And what he hasn't done, to see why that is the case. And I think, in my mind, certainly he's brought the office of being a Prime Minister into disrepute. I mean, when else in our history have we seen what we've seen just looking at what happened with Partygate, for example?
But what do you say to the people, I'll bring Kate in as well, what do you say to the people across Europe and the world who are in complete, I don't know, confusion that we got rid of a democratically elected Prime Minister who won a massive majority in 2019 because he had a piece of cake? What do you say to that?
But it was more than just a piece of a cake, and it was you can call it just a piece of cake. It was many pieces of cake. It wasn't just one piece of cake. It was many people enjoying the cake, and it's what it symbolised to the British people, who I think have a very strong sense of justice and fairness at a time when people had to make massive, massive sacrifices. People were not allowed to mourn. People were not allowed to go, not allowed to be with their families and their friends, and not allowed to associate. And here, who was a man who was behind closed doors, behind the gates of Downing Street, was having parties, was living it large when people couldn't enjoy those things that we normally take for granted. And it was a sense of injustice, I think, and unfairness, which led people to, it wasn't just a piece of cake.
I think that's a really interesting way to describe it, Kate, a sense of injustice. And yet, during this ridiculous, long-winded Tory leadership thing that's gone on for about 7 years, it seems, and we have a new Prime Minister on Monday, we'll talk about that in a sec, frighteningly to think that 70-something% of the Conservative membership, if his name was on the ballot, would still be voting for Boris Johnson. So has his popularity gone?
Well, look, I think this has a lot to do with the difference between how the Conservative Party in the country, so Conservative members, and the Conservative Party in Westminster feel. They don't necessarily feel the same way, not about what they want out of a leader, and certainly not about their own Prime Minister, about Boris Johnson. Now, that's been the case for a while, and there are some in the Tory party who've recognised that and have tried to bring the two closer together and fix it, but they haven't succeeded. And that's a fundamental problem for whoever gets into number 10 next. And it's probably going to be Liz Truss, because the party has got used to this idea of chaos. And remember, there's a whole new load of MPs who came in 2019 who are not wedded to the Conservative Party structure. They are not bound by a sense of duty, or by any sense, really, that they have to wait their turn for a ministerial job. They feel emboldened by winning in seats where the party never won before. And crucially, they feel like that's down to them. And that's given them the freedom to act out, if you like, and behave in a different way. And that split between the party in the country and the party in Westminster is problematic.
That's very true. Luciana, also, one of the things that I hear repeatedly from Tories is not about his behaviour. Far more traditional right-wing Tory voters complain that he didn't deliver the Tory manifesto, the traditional Tory things, lowering taxes. He was hell-bent on a green agenda. He seemed to concentrate on things that aren't traditional Tory voters. Now, Kate's absolutely right. The Tory party is in turmoil. We have Sunak or Truss. Every poll points to Liz Truss becoming the Prime Minister on Monday. Sunak will not accept a job because she'll offer him something that's not good enough. What becomes of the Tory party? Because I guess your ex-employers, the Labour Party, should be rubbing their hands with glee. But I still find it astonishing, by the way, that they're only 13 points in front. They should be out of sight, shouldn't they, by now?
Well, it was 15 points in front.
Oh, was it 15?
According to the YouGov.
And I salute you for walking out on that lot, because Corbyn was an absolute disgrace, genuinely.
Yeah, and it was every good reason why I left the Labour Party back in February of 2019. I mean, just to answer your question, I think part of the challenge is that on what he pledged, Boris Johnson did not deliver on so many fronts. You touched on levelling up. You only have to look at the most recent GCSE results to see the disparity between the north and the south. Whether it was all the hospitals that he said he was going to be building, that's gone to the wayside. The festival of Brexit, which we find out today, cost millions of pounds, and again didn't deliver it. There's a litany of things that he did pledge, and if you make a promise in an election manifesto, you have to deliver on them.
Who do you fear most, Truss or Sunak?
Well, it's going to be Liz Truss. Every poll points in that
We're
direction.
not allowed to say that because we have to do straight down the line. But every poll says it will be Liz Truss. She's the continuity candidate, isn't she?
They're both continuity candidates. They've both sat around the cabinets.
I don't understand. Kate, I'll bring you in on this. You lot are political. You're high flyers. I think the Tory party is a really strange beast, right? They waited months for somebody to be courageous enough to stand up and basically, with the greatest respect, stick a blade between Boris Johnson's shoulder blades. But whoever did that was never going to be trusted. And that comes out in every hustings and it comes out in every poll. When he resigned, Sunak, right, having supported all these things that people disagree with, it folded like a deck of cards, didn't it? And he would never be trusted by the traditional Tories. So I think the Labour Party... What do you make of the Labour Party under Keir Starmer, then?
I think you see the Labour Party make massive strides to, first of all, actually come up with proper plans. You've heard from the Labour Party just in the last few weeks, a plan which we should have had from this government. We should have had from Boris Johnson in his last few weeks. We should have had Parliament recalled, in advance of the Ofgem price cap, the energy price cap rising as it did at the end of last week. And what we have, at least from a party of opposition under the leadership of Sir Keir Starmer.
Would you rejoin them?
a properly costed plan. I'm not allowed to rejoin.
No, but in 2 years' time, would you rejoin him with Keir Starmer in charge instead of that anti-Semite Jeremy Corbyn?
Let's see what happens in 2 years' time. It's academic for this moment in time.
Kate, quick question. We know about Monday the Queen is not going to receive her new Prime Minister, 15th Prime Minister in Buckingham Palace, going to be in Balmoral. The priorities for the new Prime Minister, I mean, who'd want the job? This country is broken, the energy crisis, the cost, everything. I mean, it's a pretty hard task, isn't it, for whoever takes over?
It's going to be a mammoth task. And the most difficult thing for Liz Truss, if it is Liz Truss, and as you say, the polls point in that direction, is that she has spent the last however many weeks making quite significant promises to the Conservative Party members, which have been heard by the rest of the country, and she may well find it difficult to deliver on hardly any of them because of the scale of what she's going to have to do. She's going to have to tackle energy prices. That will be her first major intervention. But there's also food prices, inflation. And remember, every decision she makes could potentially fuel inflation. Some people saying, some experts saying it could be 22% by next year. Everything feeds everything else.
Yeah.
If you help, for example, those at the lower end with energy bills, but not those in the middle classes who maybe could get through it, well, they might stop spending. They might stop going out to pubs and restaurants, stop spending on clothes. And we know those businesses are really struggling too. The government can't help everyone. Truss has been clear about that. But essentially, that's what she's going to be asked to do, and she's going to have to find a way to navigate that alongside everything else, including the war in Ukraine.
And that, very quickly, is what I find astonishing, because Sunak, if you strip it down, is a more traditional Tory in terms of he's talking about prudence, and he's saying we can't make promises and we can't do that, and yet they're seemingly going for that continuity candidate.
But this speaks again to what we've seen from the Conservatives over the last 12 years, because that's how long they've been in office for. You know, we are in this crisis at this moment in time. I was a former shadow energy minister for 3 years between 2010 and 2013, and we didn't, as a country, do what we should have done to save when it rains. And we're in this absolute crisis now because we have this over-reliance on foreign imported gas. We haven't seen the investment that we should have had in nuclear. We're an island. We've got wind that blows. We've got tidal power that we should be using, solar, the whole thing. We could be powering millions of homes, and we could have done so much to insulate properties across the UK. We've got some of the most leaky properties across Europe. We could have seen millions of people not spending money which just escapes through their door, and that's why we're in such a dire situation now. With we're facing inflation.
Listen, we've done this every single night, and I say to both of you, we've done it every single night about broken Britain and the cost of living crisis, and you get to a point where you feel, what more can we say? People are struggling, and it's not just those on lower incomes. I talk about the jams every single night. They're just about managing people who pay all their bills and do all of that and are struggling. Hard times.
But EDF has said, the head of ADF said, come January, 50% of households in this country...
Boris said, buy a kettle.
Well, no, we'll be spending more than 10% or more of our disposable income on our energy bills. This is not just about managing...
I agree. Imagine opening your doors to a Ukrainian refugee, only for them to walk out of those doors with your partner about 3 weeks later. We'll meet the woman who did just that. She'll tell us the whole story. It's here. It's after the break. We're coming right back. Welcome back to Uncensored, my friends. Now, they say no good deed goes unpunished, and one woman who would say amen to that is Lorna Garnett. Back in May, Lorna and partner Tony welcomed Sofia Karkadim, a 22-year-old IT worker, as a refugee from Ukraine. And whilst Lorna was no doubt hoping the addition to the household would settle in nicely, she wasn't expecting her to settle into the bed next to her partner and the father of her kids. This scheme, by the way, 25,000 British people signed up for the Homes for Ukraine scheme, and in total 84,000 Ukrainians moved into hosts' houses, £350 a month. First up, Lorna, thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. I don't know where to start. Just tell us the story whilst I ask the people in the gallery to turn my ear out, because I can hear them all asking what they're going to have for dinner. Lorna, tell me how it happened.
Yeah. So basically, Anthony was adamant that we moved in a Ukrainian refugee to help, obviously, everything that's gone on in the war. It's horrendous. So he pleaded with me to go on his side to help bring in a Ukrainian refugee into our home. So I accepted. And 10 days later, she's packed her bags and gone, and he's followed behind her.
Can I just go back to when you said he convinced me? Were you against the idea? Was his motivation humanitarian, or do you think his motivation was different? I'm not trying to foresee what was going to happen, but I'm just wondering, you painted the picture that he was keener than you. Why?
He wanted me to accept it because of what's happened in his past with his family. Because he's told me a background story that he's got Russian blood, basically, and his granddad were Russian. Okay. And they fled the Cold War, so he wanted to do something good. And obviously, if it were happening in our country, then he'd like to think that someone would be there to help us. But I wasn't dead against it, but I had my worries about it, because obviously we've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old together, and bringing a stranger into our home around 2 young girls, I was really funny about it.
It's really interesting from afar to have watched you know, the people in the United Kingdom show such tenacity, I think, and do that. So I think it shows an awful lot about our country. But yours is one of the most talked about stories, because, as you said, within 10 days, fast by 10 days, what did you start to suspect? What happened? I mean, 10 days is nothing.
It isn't. So it was literally day 2 of her being here. She arrived on the Wednesday. By the Thursday, her appearance changed. So she'd gone from wearing baggy clothes to hair scrunched up to then wearing more low-cut tops, plastering her face with makeup. And she would always be the first one to welcome him home when he'd walk through the door, saying, "Oh, Anthony, you're home, you're home. I've made tea." And I'd be a bit like, "Well, I've already made him tea, do you know?" But she'd always kind of like drag him in. She'd always be the first one there to welcome him. So that were a bit of a red flag at first. But obviously I couldn't bring it up with either of them because it wasn't such a major concern at that point.
How quickly do you now know they got together?
From even before her arriving.
Even before her
arriving? Because it's come out in the press, yeah. Yes, it's come out. He's put in one article, I think it's with The Sun, that he'd been talking to her 4 months prior to her arriving in the UK. So,
in a scheme that involves 84,000 Ukrainians, is there a whiff of the fact that this bloke knew and somehow managed to get her to move in with you guys? Was this pre-planned in any way? Is that how you now feel?
100%. 100%. I think it was all done over Facebook, over Messenger, and he used the government scheme to help bring her here.
Oh, my Lord. One of the things that's come out, obviously recently, is that a lot of these families who showed such desire to help and get their £350, that's not enough. I think the Refugees Minister, Lord Harrington, has called for the money payment to maybe be doubled because of the rising cost of living. You talk very honestly about how you believe that he was doing it out of the kindness of his heart, and then you paint a picture of a bloke who'd got this planned. How does it leave you feeling? Because this is the bit of the story that I really struggle with, because you say, I've no ill will towards him, really, or her.
I haven't. Basically, what's done is done. But in the grand scheme of things, £350 wouldn't have helped at all, because the setup cost, obviously, with buying her toiletries, feminine products, going out shopping to go buy her new clothes, because she came with very, very little. I've spent a hell of a lot more than £350.
But I'm not trying to... Listen, I respect you, but I mean, you said, I'm looking back, I'm happier than I've ever been. So you weren't happy with him anyway?
I am.
So you weren't happy with him anyway?
It was more of... I was happy with him. It's his past. So 3 years ago, he cheated on me with his boss from work.
We can't be specific.
So there was never that trust there when we got back together.
We can't be specific on that because obviously there's only one side. But I will say this to you. You say that you hold no ill will, and that actually, the extraordinary thing about you is that you say that you still support the scheme despite the heartache it's brought to you.
I do, because the way I see it is you can't tarnish everyone with the same brush. There's good and bad in everybody out there. And unluckily for me, we picked a bad egg.
You say a bad egg.
But I do believe that there's...
Go on.
So I do believe that there's so many genuine people out there who do need a roof over their head. They do need the support just to get back on their feet, to find a home, to find themselves a job and live as a normal human being should.
I think you're an amazing woman. In an interview with Yorkshire Live, your ex-partner said the couple, that's him and his Ukrainian lady, are moving to Ukraine to help orphan children. All very admirable. What about his own kids?
Exactly. Exactly. This is my issue at the minute.
In reality,
really
he told some radio station I've never heard of, I was doing the right thing that I believed I was doing to help someone that was fleeing a war zone. I was making her feel comfortable. Silly things like putting Ukrainian subtitles. It's all very. But I do have to ask you this because it is in the public domain. You say you hold no ill will to her, and I really appreciate you coming on, and no ill will to him. But you've got a restraining order against him.
I have, yes, due to threatening messages. So that had to be put in place.
I tell you something. I've spoken to a few people in my time, Lorna, and I have to say that you are extraordinarily calm, and maybe it is a lesson for us all, actually, that whatever we think is happening at the time, when you take stock, you realise that things weren't great, and maybe all of this, however painful, puts you in a better place. But what I really admire about you, genuinely, is that you can still, which is, I think it's quite a British thing, I'll be slagged off for saying that, but I thought the way that the British, people rallied behind this desire to help Ukrainians quite rightly was amazing. And you're still sat here saying, I'd do it again, which must mean an awful lot to people watching, because it means a lot to me. I wish you luck moving forward, and I really, with the kids as well, I hope they're OK. And I hope that Tony finds happiness with whatever she's called, Sophia. Thank you so much, Lorna. I really appreciate it. Lorna Garnett there, the lady who opened her doors to a Ukrainian refugee, and literally 10 days later, he ran off with her. What a balanced and wonderful lady. Thank you. Right, next on Uncensored, toddler in a tiara. In the week when we should have been focusing on Princess Diana and her incredible legacy 25 years on, Princess Pinocchio has managed to yet again steal the headlines with another set of truths. When will it ever end? We're back in 3.
This is Talk TV.
Now, it surely cannot be a coincidence, with Morgan as safely ensconced on his luxury yacht, that Meghan Markle has decided to produce some of her finest work. I reckon she does it to wind him up. You know, Morgan's on holiday, let's make the old man choke on his fresh oysters. On a serious note, in the week when we should all be focusing on Princess Diana and her incredible legacy 25 years on, the global media is instead reporting Meghan comparing her marriage, this is unbelievable, to Nelson Mandela's release from jail. Now, today, Mandela's own grandson slammed Markle for equating the culmination of nearly 350 years of struggle with the celebration of her wedding. And if that wouldn't have got Morgan heaving overboard, this afternoon, this is just ridiculous, a new episode of Meghan's podcast Archetypes dropped with special guest Mariah Carey. Here's a teaser with a warning. Hope you're not in the middle of your dinner.
If there's any time in my life that it's been more focused on my race, it's only once I started dating my husband. Then I started to understand what it was like to be treated like a black woman, because up until then I had been treated like a mixed woman.
I'm now joined by royal commentator and biographer Angela Levin, Talk TV commentator Afia Hagan, and royal expert from the US, Kinsey Schofield. Ladies, welcome. Let's start with my friend Angela Levin. Is it me, or the majority of the British people, that are wrong? What is this woman up to? What is her motivation for continually, it seems, drawing attention to herself whilst kicking the very institution that has been long before her and will last long after? I don't get it.
Well, I think it's quite simple, actually. And it's not just the UK. It's happening all around the world of people who are seeing right through her. I think her aim is to get rid of the British royal family, without a doubt. And part of that is because she has to win. She fights and fights and goes on until she wins.
Wins what?
Well, she wins her battle. She didn't think she was well treated there. In fact, what it was, of course, was that she wasn't used to it. You can't change your country, change your family, change your job, come into something that's very unusual and decide within 5 minutes you want to make them modern and they should listen to you and she should be number one. They should make her very, very famous and concentrate on all her beauty and her brain and all the rest of it, without giving anything a chance. If she'd stayed there, it might have been helpful and been sensible and fitted in, but she won't, because she wants everything her way all the time.
If I could bring in Kinsey Schofield from America. Thank you so much for joining us, Kinsey. The Americans are famous for loving the royal family, and I don't even know why I did that accent. Just explain to me, when this, I mean, the New York Post today, Toddler and Tiara, has made it pretty clear what they think of this woman. Are American people's views of her changing? Are they supportive? Because today she's played the race card again.
I do think that they've changed, because America is really struggling right now with inflation, gas prices, politics. I mean, everything is so polarizing. So when Meghan Markle, sitting in her mansion, goes on TV to complain about becoming a princess and having all of this attention and this platform given to her by her in-laws, I do think that perception is changing in America, and we're a little bit more critical of her. After the Oprah interview, we all sympathized with her. We wanted to take them in. We wanted to protect them. But we talked about that a year ago. There's no reason to continue on with that story. What does she have to say? What are her morals? What are her values? And what are her objectives? We need more from Meghan than continuing to obsess over the past.
I completely agree. Afia Hagan, I know that you see it differently. I appreciate you being on the show. What I don't get about Meghan Markle is, are we saying that she didn't realise what she was marrying into? She seems very, to me, to be dead set on this course of destroying, in her mind, the royal family. She seems to have a very high opinion of herself. And if you, as Angela said, you judge the global reaction to this, there's real anger. Real anger.
I think there's faux anger, to be honest. I think actually what Angela said was right. She wasn't used to it. Absolutely. She's changed jobs. She's just got married. She's had these huge life changes. Marrying into the royal family, it was a huge thing for her.
But she always wanted that. Did she always wanted that? She was outside Buckingham Palace eyeing up the royal family years and years ago. Do you not go with the people who say she had this completely laid out? This is a plan to get with this boy who's had all sorts of issues and has, as we all know, had problems, right? I mean, Prince Harry, right now in the United... I mean, I was watching something today. They were saying these two should be stripped of their titles and sent away. How can you still trade on something that you spend almost every day slagging off? That's what I don't get.
Look, Meghan Markle is talking about her experiences. When you talk about playing the race card, that's unfair because there is no such thing as playing the race card. She, as a mixed-race woman, is talking about her experiences, which affect her every day. Unfortunately, you can't choose that. So it's not playing a race card.
All right, OK, we know it.
No. It's about talking about her experiences.
All right, if it's about her experience,
and Kinsley finished, so I'm going to finish as well.
Okay.
It's about talking about her experiences. As you asked, do I think that she planned every moment of this? No, I don't. I don't. I really, really don't. I don't think she has that much free time.
Who do you think
there's a lot of people who spend a lot of time reading between the lines where there is nothing to read. She gave an interview with the Cut, and headlines were extrapolated from that.
That's nonsense to say that. She's been absolutely ghastly. Her timing has been totally inappropriate. When Harry's grandfather was dying in hospital, and she knew and Harry knew, they'd been told she had 2 weeks or 3 weeks to live, she still went and talked on Oprah Winfrey Show. That is disgraceful to upset him and upset the Queen, because her father was dying.
I agree. So let me... You say I said about the race thing, and if there is any form of racism, you know me, we've known each other a long time, in any part of the world, disgusting and wrong. But here's what I get. She's that up her own, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, backside. She has the temerity to say that my wedding to a prince, and I take Kinsey's view, in the middle of a global economic recession where families are struggling. She says, and I quote, me getting married, I was told it was as important as Nelson Mandela. His grandson today says, who the hell does she think she is? Come on.
That's, again, we also need to talk about the way this feature was written and the way that a lot of these quotes have been... Angela, I let you finish, so I'm going to finish as well. A lot of these quotes have been extrapolated for their own kind of generating their headlines. What she said was, a cast member of The Lion King said to her... She is not comparing herself to Nelson Mandela.
Why mention it then?
All.
Why mention it?
The cast member of The Lion King said to her that this moment in time was like that. She's not comparing herself to Nelson Mandela.
And
actually, if you read the next line, it says she knows that she's known Nelson Mandela.
Okay,
she's not comparing herself to that.
Let's bring Kinsey back in from the US, desperate to speak. Kinsey.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but I just have to stress, Meghan Markle is a savvy woman. She has gone through press training. She's gone through royal press training. This is a woman that knows how important sound bites are. The writer even acknowledges that she speaks as if there's a Bachelor producer living in her head. She knows what these reporters are going to take away and turn into headlines. She knows the talking points, and quite frankly, she is so important in the United States that she could say this is off limits and this is off limits. Meghan knows exactly what she's saying and what she's doing. I think the woman is very intelligent. So I think it's silly for us to say, oh, she had no idea that people were going to pull certain headlines. She is very skilled and very savvy and was probably some PR guru in another life.
Conniving.
Well, can I just say, all of us would agree, and this is what really winds me up, Afia, right? Tomorrow is 25 years since the Princess Diana died, OK? The tragedy that rocked the world, right? Her 2 sons left without a mother. You cannot convince me, we could sit here all night and say that yet again Meghan Markle's timing, don't tell me it's a coincidence, she wants the world to be talking about her instead of Diana. That's her problem, that is it.
But she sees herself as Diana number 2. She sees herself as an alternative Diana. She wears Diana's perfume. When she was with Harry, she was saying that all sorts of things, that she's very close to Diana. Harry said he thought his mother they would be best friends. I mean, she's planning herself to be another Diana because she thinks he's like her, because she also felt that she was treated badly. Of course, she wasn't. It was a whole different sort of
I would love to know.
And she loved the royal family, but she couldn't cope with it.
I would love to know, Afia. Yeah, you can, but can I just say this? I would love to know what Diana, Princess of Wales, would have made of Meghan Markle. I agree with you. Yes, Sophia, your shout.
Oh, I can answer now. Thanks, Angela. You know, I think it's really disappointing, actually, that this has all happened around this time, because I would love to be talking to you more about Diana's legacy, about 25 years since she passed, about where we all were when it happened, about, you know, she was a fashion icon, she was an icon of philanthropy, about the legacy she leaves behind.
But you keep saying finish. I think, you just made the worst point. Why has it happened? Because Meghan Markle has let it out now, and you cannot, Afia, with the greatest of respect. She is savvy, Kinsey's right. She knows what she's doing. She has released this, The Cut, and that ridiculous podcast, however many millions she's paid for that, on the eve of the death of his mother. And I am astounded that Prince Harry does not have a pair big enough to say, "Oi, love, that was my mother." Come on.
But he's got no courage to say anything against her. He will lie because he doesn't want to upset her. She will just let her do everything, and she's made a total wreck of him. I spent a year and a quarter with him. Hang on a second, if you could. I spent a year and a quarter with him, and he's totally changed. He's just become resentful and aggressive, and she's taught him how to hate his family. He got on very well with Prince Charles. They had their problems earlier on, later on, they were very compatible, and she's just destroyed him. And I think he's up a terrible, terrible situation at the moment.
At the end of the day, he's a grown man, she's a grown woman, they're a married couple. I'm pretty sure that they had discussions around the timing of the release of the podcast.
Next on Uncensored now, it was 25 years since the death of the People's Princess Diana. The question is, will Meghan Markle ever be able to replace her in people's hearts?
25 years ago today, Diana died. Sadly, the whole world in mourning. One word that, in your mind, would sum up Diana?
Oh, she was amazing, personally. Amazing. She did the job. And, yeah, that's all I really have to say. I think she carried the nation first.
But, yeah, incredible human.
Brilliant. And I was on my way to work, and I just read the papers, and I said, it can't be true. And it was a shock.
I thought she was the most wonderful princess. She was a beautiful lady. I met her and I was in awe of her. I thought she was amazing.
What do you think the People's Princess would have said to her son or Meghan Markle about what's going on?
I think she would have preferred Kate, because I think Kate's lovely and she's really kind and nice. I think Meghan's a little bit in it for herself.
And what do you think Diana would have made of Markle? What would she have said?
You go on, girl.
What word would you describe Meghan Markle as?
Oh, do we have to? Don't like her at all.
One word that sums up Meghan Markle.
I feel for her, to be honest.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I just think that it's just been really hard on her, and I agree with Harry. I agree with their decisions and their choices. I think it was the right thing to do to get her out of there before history, like he said, started to repeat itself.
So a cross-section of opinion. Joining me now is Talk Radio's royal correspondent Rupert Bell, Princess Diana's friend Sally Morgan, who worked with her for nearly 5 years in the 90s, and lawyer Paula Roan Adrienne. Ladies and Rupert, welcome. Sally, can I start with you? I found it really strange. I live in Windsor. I went up to the castle today to just gauge opinion, and I almost found this generational reaction, if I'm honest. The older generation called her beautiful, wonderful, inspirational and caring, and have no time for Meghan Markle. The younger generation would say to me, we don't really know too much except for what we've watched on The Crown, but we feel sorry for Meghan. Who was Diana, the woman that you knew? What made her so special in your mind?
Well, I think that she was, she turned out to be very outspoken. She was one of the first people to talk about her mental health and mental health. She was one of the first prominent people to embrace individuals with AIDS. She was somebody that stood up for the underdog, and I also think that people could see her pain. I certainly could see it, and I saw it on a daily basis.
Was she inspirational?
I think she was. I mean, she was inspiration for so many people, for so many women at that time that were having difficulties in their marriage, in their relationships. You know, if the Princess of Wales can divorce the Prince of Wales, if that can happen, then I can certainly leave my husband who isn't treating me too well or is having an affair. So I think that she was an inspiration to many people.
Paula, to bring you in, Meghan Markle has, by anybody's standards, caused so much reaction, and let's be honest, a lot of it negative. You could feel that today on the streets. You read it almost every day.
I don't think she's caused a negative reaction. I do think that the press have reacted negatively.
My problem with that, and I said it last night, and the reason we're doing it is because it is everywhere, and it's what people want to talk about. Here's what I'm going to say, and I'll say it again. If you don't want to be in the royal family, because you don't want the press exposure, and you don't like every facet of your life being interrogated. I get that. You go to California with the love of your life and you have 2 children. You don't land and sign a deal with Spotify. And this is the bit that really gets on my bits, if I'm being completely honest. Every single time there is something that matters to the royal family, like the death of Prince Philip, like, you know, today, the 25th anniversary, what does old Meghan Markle do? Drop her latest truth bomb. It's a podcast. It's true. Her timing is dreadful, Paula.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think that, you know, listen, they
this
love one
another. This is what happens. The negativity just runs rife,
but it's
doesn't
a fact.
I'm going to say a negative. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon and say a negative. When we talk about facts, I think what we're missing here is reality. You described Diana so beautifully, and I would say that I could describe Meghan in exactly the same way.
Well, we could describe. I could describe Meghan in that way, but if you look at what she's done to the royal family,
it's not what she's done to the royal family. Let's
well,
remember that.
Do you not think she's manipulative?
She has.
I don't know her. What I do know is that the message, the very clear message that we are getting reported to us, is that she's a bully, that she's aggressive, that she's taken over Harry's life as if he's some weak individual. And yet we forget that his own mother was forced to flee this country.
Yep.
She herself was planning to move to LA. She herself had decided to begin a relationship with somebody who didn't look like her, who didn't talk like her, who didn't come from a family that fit into the establishment. And this is what you were asking of Meghan. She wasn't prepared for this, and neither were the establishment. The establishment got it wrong with Diana. They got it wrong with Andrew.
Well, no,
and they've got it wrong.
Let me bring in Rupert Bell if I can. Talk to his royal correspondent. He shared a goddaughter with Diana, and knows through his family, his brother trains for the Queen, many links, Coldstream Guards as well. Rupert, you're very, you always play it very straight down the line. What was your response to what I said about Meghan Markle? Like her or loathe her, it seems to me that she drops this stuff at the exact moment to cause as much embarrassment and hurt to the royal family as possible.
It does. Her timing is horrendous, but she has created this. When we went to the wedding, the groundswell of public opinion was so much in her favour, and yet she has managed to end up basically painting this picture that everything is everybody else's fault. It's never her fault, and I think that's part of the problem. It always seems to saying that X-member of the royal family has done this, that member of the royal family has done that. She has not done anything wrong, and I think that's what's frustrating people. Why does she always feel the need to pay the victim as she sits in her $14 million villa in California when most of us are worried about whether they're going to get food on the table? So I really do think she needs to start reading the room and realise that what she is saying most of the time doesn't resonate with most of the British public.
Paula, that's quite an interesting point of Rupert's. How would you respond to that?
Well, quite easily. We talk about this groundswell as if we can dictate what others think. I don't know what the society thinks because it's not being reported. What I'm being told is that that's what people think, but your own report has just informed us that actually there's a lot of people out there who have sympathy for her.
Absolutely.
And I suspect...
I started by saying it was generational. I genuinely believe that.
Absolutely. And I wonder if it's because of where people are getting their information from. And if it is generational, which I think is probably right, there is the younger generation that get their information, get their news from other places.
Absolutely.
There's the older generation who get their news from different places and who trust where they get their news.
I'm not doubting that, but you haven't answered the question, and a supporter of Thea Hagen of her last night also did not answer the question. Do you not think there is something in the fact, in my opinion there is, we're all entitled to opinion, that every time Prince Philip died, today's the 25th anniversary of Diana, the Queen is ill, she keeps dropping this stuff via third and fourth parties. There's got to be... I'm not saying she might not have a case. I'm not saying it wasn't hard. I'm not saying that there have been people who have said and done things massively unfair to her. I absolutely can see the comparisons, but I absolutely... When I look at those pictures of the two of them in the Diana picture in the black polo neck and her as well, Diana looks vulnerable, lost, scared. Meghan Markle looks straight down the camera and looks like, I've got this absolutely licked. She doesn't create sympathy in me. That's the problem.
And let me tell you why, because let me answer the question, because you answered the question yourself, but your tone was very quiet when you did, I noticed that. You said that the bombs are dropped by some third or fourth party person.
Omar Schmidt or something, isn't it?
We're not suggesting, are we, that this is Meghan that is putting out this information.
Well, we know her.
But it is Meghan that wants that information.
Doesn't deny any of it, though, does she? Come on.
And then secondly, even if she did deny it, where are we going to read that?
Why do you forgive her?
Where are we going to read that?
Are you with me on this?
There's a Harper's Bazaar article that came out in I think it was 2021, forgive me if I've got the date wrong, where it referenced in lots of detail about the approach that is taken in relation to Meghan, as opposed to the approach that is taken to lovely
Is that because of the colour of her skin? Serious?
I don't know. You tell me.
I'm interested in what you say to that. I mean,
she would tell you yes.
Archetypes yesterday, you heard the podcast. She said that she felt that she was treated as a black woman only when she married a prince. And that's, of course, in any way, if that's right, that's fundamentally wrong. I've said that from day one. I just can't, Sally, get away from... I'm just being honest. I can't... See, Rupert makes a really, really good point. How does that look and sound right now with this country on the precipice of economic disaster?
Well, absolutely. But I do think that when you look at Meghan and you look at how she is the one that really is controlling Harry. There's absolutely no doubt. She is. I mean, no, she is, Paula.
Harry was vociferous.
No, but
and has
Harry is
to be.
totally and utterly in love with her. When you really, really love someone, you will do anything for them. She recognises that. She refused. She looked at the system. She refused to bow to her brother-in-law and her sister-in-law. She could not understand.
I'll tell you what I want to bring on to, and I want to bring Rupert back in, because I'd like the three of you to answer this next question. Rupert, what would Diana, the people's princess, and let's be honest, flawed, let's be honest, with her ex-husband, both used the media systematically. My old man worked for the Queen Mother, and he said that everybody after the Queen has used the media. What would Diana have said about Meghan? When I was out and about today at Windsor Castle, half of the people were saying she'd have taken her under the wing, she'd have felt sorry for her. The other half was saying she would have been gutted that her son and her brother and his brother had split up over this woman and she had taken action. What would you say, Rupert?
I think she would have tried to give Meghan all the advice and would have probably been around to actually explain the pitfalls that are likely to come her way and realise what joining the firm is all about.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether they were briefed enough, but the Meghan Markle has said that she wasn't briefed. Well, she knew all about it. When you go in and are going to be a member of the royal family, it comes out pretty quickly. And I think that's what she would have done. She would have had plenty of experience, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, to bring to the table. Because remember, she came to the royal family as a 19-year-old, very inexperienced young lady. A big age gap between her and her husband, whereas Meghan was a lady of the world, being an actress, been out there, already married before, so much more experienced.
That's it from me. Stop cheering, you lucky people. 5 weeks covering for the big man, of course. Piers Morgan back Monday at 8. Just in time to sink his teeth into the new Prime Minister. Just remember, whatever you're up to this weekend, make sure it's uncensored. And for the final time, ta-ra!
I'm Tom Newton-Dunn, and this is Talk TV. The most memorable moment in my career, without sounding completely conceited, has to be interviewing President Trump in the Oval Office in the White House. Particularly the little red button he had on his desk. I had no idea what he did as the interview went on. I wondered more rumors as going to launch a nuclear strike on North Korea or open up a shark pit that I'd then fall into. Turned out he pressed it right at the end of the interview, and in walked a butler with a tray carrying a Diet Coke. It was a Diet Coke button.
This is Talk TV News.
Good evening, I'm Nadira Tudor. The vote count is underway to find out who will replace Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak have spent the last 6 weeks battling and vying for every last Tory member's vote. The new leader will be announced on Monday. Russian energy giant Gazprom will not resume gas supplies to Europe on Saturday as planned, blaming an oil leak. It comes after G7 ministers announce a price cap on Russian oil exports to curb revenue financing the war in Ukraine and to tackle inflation in the West. And the Queen won't attend the Highland Games on Saturday. It's understood Her Majesty is suffering from mobility issues. On Tuesday, she'll swear in the next Prime Minister from Balmoral for the first time. That's all for now. We'll have more after the talk.